Let's call this meeting to order. Welcome to our August 18th, 2020 council meeting. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Matt, get a roll call.
Councilor West.
Here.
Savage. Halter.
Here.
Zadi.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Demus.
Here.
Tate.
Here.
Shalata.
Here.
Mayor Como.
Here, councilors, first order of business, we have the approval of the minutes from the city council meeting of August 4th, 2020, and the special meeting minutes of July 18th, 2020. What's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Shalata?
move to approve those minutes.
We do have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is going to move us on to the bid openings. We have one item under the bid openings, and that's the 2020 crack seal project, of which we have one bidder, R&D Sweeping and Asphalt, out of Rock Springs, Wyoming. We do have a bid bond attached. Total bid, $53,695. $53,695. This bid will be turned over to staff for review. Thank you, sir. And that's going to take us right into our presentations and proclamations. The first proclamation that we have is a National Immunization Awareness Month. Is Kelly here? I don't see Kelly. Anyway, our proclamation reads, whereas immunizations are one of the most cost-effective health prevention measures, the CDC estimates 21 million hospitalizations and 732,000 deaths will be avoided among children born in the last 20 years as a result of vaccines. And immunizations have been cited by the U.S. Public Health Service as one of the 10 great public health achievements in the 20th century. And even so, approximately 42,000 adults and 300 children still die each year from vaccine-preventable diseases. And by receiving an immunization for a disease, a person defends him or herself against catching that disease. As such, society gains a collective immunization as more and more people become immune to a particular disease. And certain cancers and diseases are preventable for both girls and boys through the HPV vaccine called Gardasil 9, and there has been a decline in vaccination since COVID-19. The need is more important than ever to educate and encourage our community to understand the importance of all vaccines. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Timothy A. Como, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby proclaim the month of August 2020 to be National Immunization Awareness Month in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And I urge all of our residents of Rock Springs to protect our community by vaccinating when necessary and bringing awareness to National Immunization Awareness Month. I think this is a very important proclamation, and it is a bit of an issue since the COVID-19. It seems like fewer and fewer of individuals are visiting the doctor to get vaccines or other. COVID-19 has been no friend for anyone by any means. But is there anyone here to accept a proclamation that we know of? Okay. The second proclamation that we have is Hunger Action Month. And this proclamation reads, whereas addressing the food insecurity needs of children, young men, women, seniors, active military, and veterans today is fundamental for the future of Rock Springs. And hunger and poverty are issues of vital concern in Sweetwater County, where 11.7% of people struggle with hunger, and 1 in every 6 children do not know where their next meal will be coming from. And the need for comprehensive, coordinated emergency food programs place upon our community a critical responsibility. And Rock Springs is committed to combating hunger in every part of our community and providing additional resources that those in Rock Springs need. And more than 5,140 residents of Sweetwater County rely annually on food provided by Wyoming Food Bank of the Rockies and their local partners. And Wyoming Food Bank of the Rockies, its generous funders, volunteers, and local partner agencies are committed to educating citizens on the role of food banks and hunger relief efforts in solving hunger. And Wyoming Food Bank of the Rockies provides over 12 million meals across Wyoming annually. And to engage each of us to help end hunger 1 meal at a time, either through donations, social media shares, or volunteer shifts. And the month of September is designated Hunger Action Month in order to bring attention to food insecurities in our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Timothy A. Como, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2020 to be Hunger Action Month in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and encourage all citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of food insecurity and how it impacts our nation, our state, our county, and this community. Do we have someone here? Oh. Oh, you want to come down and say a few words? Sure. Come to the microphone and make sure it's on, and give us your name for the record if you would. We'd like to hear what you have to say. Thanks, Chief.
Wolcott, W-O-L-C-O-T-T. I am with the Food Bank of the Rockies. I supervise the state of Wyoming. I believe we have partners here. Sweetwater County is a very important county for the Food Bank of the Rockies. We have wonderful partners. We could not do it without our partners. I supervise 180 agencies across the state and 292 programs. We are feeding every single county in the state. Without the partners that we do have, we could not do what we do. We are the bridge between the resources that we get and the need that exists in every single town in the state. So I want to highlight, I don't know if Judy is here. Judy, thank you so much, Judy. Judy is my site coordinator for the mobile pantries that we do. We have one coming up on Saturday. This is an MPC 19, meaning it's a mobile pantry covered 19 related. We have had those in every single county in the state since March. So that's on top of everything else that we do across the state. So thank you so much. It was something that just came out of the blue. You stepped in March, or was it in May? I can't remember.
Our first one was in May.
In May?
We started planning it.
In May. So it was very successful. We fed about 400 plus families that day.
505.
How many?
Wow.
505.
That's amazing.
So because it was so successful, I decided to set up another one. We don't really know ahead of time where those are going to be. It's a strategic decision on my part where those are going to be set up. But I decided to come back because the need is here. Then the Boys and Girls Club is a great partner of ours.
This is the president right here.
Thank you. It is, like I said, we could not do it without our partners. And then 2 food banks in Sweetwater County, 1 in Rock Springs, 1 in Green River. What we do with the partners is that we deliver the food to them, and then because they know their community better than us here in, out of Casper, where the warehouse is, they distribute that food to the community. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be in this particular line.
Well, thank you guys very much. It's amazing this community comes together.
Thank you so much.
Do any of you want to come down and say a few words? It's totally, would love to have you.
I'm Kathy, and I'm the director of Food Bank of Sweetwater County and Rock Springs and Green River.
Yep.
And this is Jennifer, board chair for Food Bank. And this is
Because I have so many partners all across the state, and there's only so many hours in the day, I don't even, to this point, know everybody. So it's a pleasure to meet you in person. I've not had that chance. But it's, so that's what we do all across the state, and we're gonna keep on doing this until every little kiddo has enough food in their fridge.
Well, that's just fantastic, and
The
keep,
massive amount of food that we push out is
yeah,
incredible.
it is.
So thank you for this recognition, I appreciate it.
Thank you, and if we could, get a picture, you guys want to come down, and,
Over here?
We could have looked like the Hungry Souls.
Behind him.
Or hungry.
okay.
Said cheeseburgers, cheeseburgers.
This is going to bring us to the petitions section of our agenda. Do we have anyone here tonight wishing to address the council on any issue whatsoever? This is your time to do so. Anyone? If that's not the case, then I believe
Your
I'll
Honor?
take, yeah, Councilman Zadi?
I guess if we don't have anybody to talk, and I never really know to bring things like this up, but we'll do it in petitions. I do have a question. 2 meetings ago with the RFP for the Bitter Creek, I was told that there was another one that was released. And I had some questions on that because we had discussion in the meeting with council and, everybody wanted more transparency in that. And so I did have some questions on here, and I was surprised to see that we had an RFP released so soon. I guess it went out and people got it on Monday or Tuesday. There were some changes made to it. I don't know if all of council was aware that this was out. One change that I noticed, well, a couple changes in there. One in particular, we're going to ask that the pricing price proposal be put into a separate envelope. What's the intent behind that? I don't think that was done in the last one, and it kind of goes against what I think we were hoping for in the last meeting.
No, Counselor Zadi, that is to follow the normal state process. That's the way they do it, so we structured ours to reflect what YDOT does, what a lot of the state agencies do. They put out an RFP or some other process. They evaluate the consultants on qualifications only, and then and cost has nothing to do with it.
But I had talked to some agencies, AML being one, and in their procurement, when we do our point structure, and there's within 2 points, 3 points, pretty close, you're pretty much saying at that point, 2 entities are fairly evenly qualified. Then they look at price as a more heavier factor in determining who gets a project. So that's where I guess in my mind the question comes, if we're going to seal these and not know, how do we determine then if we do have, within a point or two off in the qualification score, and we're not looking at price at all, To me, it seems like there's a problem there, potentially, especially when we saw last
Well,
time. We
I
had
think-
1.8 points between the two top in the last one, but a difference of a price of 250,000. I don't know how we would,
I've
We would never
participated
know.
in YDOT's process many, many times, and cost never is a factor. We have always had cost proposals included in our proposal, and then we have that as part of our scoring system, and we weight it accordingly. That seemed to cause an issue, so we decided to follow the normal state process. And I'm not aware that 1 or 2 point difference, and then they negotiate with both of them. That's not the normal process.
not negotiate with both, but you would look at, okay, there's a 2 point difference, say, and you've got one that's 300,000, one that's 500,000, you're probably start negotiating with the one that's 300,000.
Well, the way the YDOT process works is they don't even know what a cost proposal from the second ranked consultant is, unless they cannot negotiate a contract with the first ranked consultant.
Okay, you guys are
And then
getting
move
a
on
little
to the
bit,
second.
if you could, I'm just gonna step out of the office because there's a good chance this is gonna come around again and I don't wanna be labeled corrupt. So I'm just gonna step out of this room and I don't wanna hear any more of this, okay? Call me when you're ready.
Okay, so, I'll wait then. That's kind of what, I mean, to me, it goes against some of the wishes of council, and I really wish we would have had some more conversation rather than we get a phone call from two of the other firms saying, did you know an RFP was out? And I have no idea. We didn't even talk about it or anything, but I know there were concerns from the last time that were legitimate concerns, I think, from all of council, and they had questions, but I don't know that any of those were answered. Councilor Salata asked about the possibility of looking at prices, opening those up in a public forum, and then going to
Well, then it's a bid.
negotiation in that. But
So
there's
if you
no-
want to bid consulting work, then
Okay,
I
but
guess
there's-
we can bid it.
there was nothing to council. No, council wasn't mentioned, talked to it. We didn't hear anything about this. I guess that's my concern, is we had such an issue with this last one. Then all of a sudden, I'm getting calls saying, hey, that RPFP's out. I don't know anything about it. I would like to know why council wasn't informed. There's other things that I'd like to see changed potentially in the process that we have, and maybe including someone on council.
Well, then I
who's-
guess you guys need to put a committee together and restructure it, because I did what I was told, my staff did what they were told, and then we got it approved by my boss, the mayor, to go forward with it.
With the new-
And that's what we did.
With the
And we
new
sent it
process.
back out. Yes.
Okay. When I look at this as well, and these are other concerns that were brought to my attention too, and when I looked at it at first, it raised question, but the RFP right now really seems to follow one proposal. It was changed to match in a lot of ways one proposal. Two, and when I looked at, and I guess the question for Rick on this, within state statute, there is that question, if you don't accept one proposal, you go on to the next and so forth down the line. I
think you should come to the mic, Rick. I mean, there's a lot of people involved with this process. I think they probably want to hear.
So let's be clear about what process we're talking about. Are we talking about the bid process?
RFP process.
Okay.
And I think Paul alluded to it. You don't negotiate with the top winner.
Well,
Then
let
you go
me
to the
first of all
next.
say I'm not familiar with the state process. I don't know how the state process
In the
works.
statute. Okay, it's in the state statute, but it would say that you'd go, if you can't negotiate with the one, then you go on to the next one, and then to the next one. My question is more a concern for me, is as council, were we right to just flat out reject all in the last one, or should we have gone through that?
Well, that's not
step-by-step
really
process?
that's not really a legal question, Counselor. I think that the process that we have always used is that an RFP goes out, and this is as far back as I can remember, an RFP goes out, then the engineering firms or whoever we send the RFP to respond to those RFPs, and then they are scored by a committee, and then the committee makes a recommendation about who should receive the contract.
Yes, correct. And you've got the scores, number 1, number 2, and number 3, who fell in place. First place, second, third.
Correct, and I think that's the only criteria that's used to determine who the committee recommends to get the contract.
Committee recommends.
Yes.
It's not that. They recommended one, we rejected it. So then, by what the statute reads, should it go then to number 2 for approval? And if that doesn't get approved, then it goes to number 3. I'm just kind of confused on the statute and how, and where our actions correct.
Well, I would have to review, I apologize, I'm not familiar with the statute that you are referring to, but, I mean, obviously what we did and what the council did was reject the recommendation of the committee and made the determination that it would send out a new RFP.
Okay, and I
so-
maybe check back with you. I just want to make sure that we complying within what we're
Well,
supposed to. on that.
that's actually a question I'm going to have to look into because I'm not familiar with that statute, and I apologize. It just has not been something that's made it into my wheelhouse
Sure,
yet.
no, that's fine.
Well, and Mr. Beck, but just to be clear, I don't think the recommendation from the council was to go back with an RFP. I think that was the advice from Mr. Kausich, is that was the process. Would be, I think it was Councilor West that asked that question, what happens if we strike this down? And we were advised that it would go back for
And
an
then
RFP. I just don't want to be,
Well,
in the weeds on
there was a
this.
motion, and then the council voted to send it
To
back
reject, no, we
No.
voted to reject the proposal, not to necessarily send it back. Am I correct on that?
I think that we should review the minutes to make sure that we're accurate about that.
To see exactly, but.
I believe that Counselor West made a motion to table it and do some negotiation, and that was also
That was
declined.
Councilor Zadi, motion to
Or
table.
Counselor Zadi, one of them, had recommended to table it and do some negotiations. That was rejected. Then the overall recommendation of the committee to approve the contract was also rejected.
Yeah, I had brought that up in my questions as far as the different options we had. One, whether we, move forward with the recommendation and make it contingent upon negotiating the price, or rejecting it, sending it back out for an RFP. That's how some of that got brought up, but I think Councilor Green's correct in his.
Yeah, and I think, that's all I'm trying to say is I don't want to mix up what my understanding was. It is, Councilor West said, what is our option? And Mr. Kausich, you said it would go back for an RFP. At that time, I asked if all participants would be able to participate in it, which you said yes.
And they all did.
So I
did
think
receive
what Councilor
an
Zadi's
RFP.
saying is, from a statute perspective, were we correct in doing that, or should we have, negotiated with the second, so we're following statute?
Well,
I
from a
understand
statute,
the question, but are you familiar
from a
with the statute?
statute perspective, the city does not have to do anything.
That's correct.
It's a professional service. Like I said, we can just, if you want to say, hand contracts to different consulting firms without going through any process. And in the case of the AML funds, that isn't true. Because of the grant, we were required to submit our process, which they approved before this all began, and they approved our normal RFP proposal process that was developed by the council years ago, and that's what we followed. The recommendation when I put this RFP out was to give more information. It was not structured to any proposal, any specific proposal. It was structured to give everybody the same information and try to force them to develop a proposal that was, I guess, more similar to each other. And so that's what we did. We gave them more information. We gave them more information on their evaluation criteria. And then it was decided at that time to just follow one of the state processes and not base the decision on cost.
No, and I do recall, I mean, that was one of the things that was brought up, is to supply more information, and I believe that was Councilor Westerly who hit on that, that it was kind of vague in the first one, so I do appreciate in putting more information in there to get exactly what we're looking for.
Councilor Zadi, may I interject for one moment? I just wanted to say that Paul is absolutely correct about this. These are contracts for professional services, and they're specifically excluded from the bidding statutes. So, you know, to give governments flexibility in terms of who they, you know, have their contracts with. So he is correct in that the RFP process that we've used forever and ever is something that we instituted ourselves. In response to your question, I didn't know if there was, you know, once we go about that process, if there is some statutory requirement, but I can tell you that you know, there is no basic statutory requirement to have any RFPs at all for professional services.
Well, except in the case of AML funds, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so
Well,
it would apply to this?
They didn't necessarily require an RFP process. They required some procurement process that met the Wyoming preference statutes and that sort of thing. We submit, and they said if you don't have your own process, then you need to use YDOT's or somebody else's that is an approved state process. We submitted ours, you know, what was developed, I guess, before this point, and they approved that and said that we could use that process. They didn't absolutely say that you have to use an RFP and a proposal process. They just said that if you don't have your own procurement process, you have to follow one of the state processes, or you can submit your process and have it approved. And that's
Right,
what
right.
we did.
I think what I'm getting at is it's not that they're excluded if it's AML funds from just handing these professional services out if it's AML funded. Would that be fair? Is that correct? You've got to follow some process.
You gotta follow some
Okay,
process.
all right, thank you.
I guess my main concern on a lot of this is that I get notified again out of the blue by others rather than city that we're even doing this and we're in this position again. I had no clue. I wish we would have been consulted to kind of get a better idea. Here's what's going to happen and how we're going to do this. So again, it just maybe eases a lot of questions that come up when I'm given information in a random phone call from others and on a Monday, and I have no clue what's going on. It's kind of disheartening to me to not have that information and know what the city's doing. We're going out for this, especially on something that was as contentious as this one is. And I do still have concerns with that process that we're doing now and not looking at price when you have such a difference. We'd never know we're spending twice in what maybe we should or not, or have to be able to know or ask those questions. So I think there's a flaw in that system as well, but something maybe we as a committee or as a council need to get together and talk about and work through. So, thank you.
I got a question. Why can't we use the bid process for things like this? What stops the council from performing that?
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
I think it defeats the purpose of the professional services contract and the reason that you hire engineers. I think Paul clearly can describe why you have professional services and why you don't pay a lot of attention to price, because what you want from these engineers is the best proposal possible based upon the RFPs that you've sent out. And so the best RFP isn't necessarily always going to be the cheapest one. And so, you know, you don't want to go cheap on the front end in terms of your engineering and design. And Paul, I think you can speak more accurately to that.
Yeah, it's qualification based. It's not solely based on price. And so we evaluate the firms on you know, past design projects and personnel that they bring to the project, and you know, and their qualifications. It's not solely based on price, and that's what a bid would do. And that's why the statute allows you to do that. They allow you to take a look at individual firms and select the one that is going to do the best job for you. And your design, your upfront type work, putting together bid specifications, that sort of thing, and the construction management part of it will make or break a project. If you don't have good quality services for that, you will end up paying more money in the end. Because when it goes to construction, with all of the issues that may arise, change orders, whatever else, more than likely you're going to end up paying more in the long run. And so that's why we take real, I guess, put a lot of emphasis on qualifications up front with our engineering consultants.
And you use a in-house committee to evaluate our process, right?
They're selected depending on the type of project. So, you know, if it's a water project, there's some water personnel on there. Sometimes outside of the city, you know, maybe somebody from the Joint Powers Water Board. Sewer, you know, we'll have sewer individuals from the water reclamation facility. We have people from finance. It just depends on the type of project.
Okay, thank you.
And is this going to be the same committee in this RFP?
We have not selected the committee.
So will you select a new one?
That hasn't been decided. I did interject that maybe there would be a counselor on the committee. But I don't know that the mayor has decided if he's going to do that or not. I believe that he may have asked some of you. I don't know. But we haven't selected the committee. The proposals are due next
25th, I think.
Wednesday, I think, or something like that, and we'll have the committee selected before then.
Okay, so one last question I have, just so I have a clear understanding. So when you say price won't be a factor, when you guys open up the bids, the price will be sealed. You'll look at the bid, select it, and then whatever price accompanies that, well, that's how you select it?
No, the consultants will be ranked on their qualifications. So whatever the top ranked consultant is, we will open their cost proposal. You know, and we have normal costs that we can figure what it should cost. If it's way out of line, at that point we can negotiate with that company, that consultant, and say, you know, you're way out of line, whatever, or it's just not gonna work, whatever the case, and then we would go to the second consultant and negotiate with them. But it gives you the opportunity to base your ranking on qualifications only, and then the opportunity to take a look at the bid. If it's not within normal ranges or their rates are extremely high, you can either decline it or negotiate with them. If you can't come to some kind of an agreement that is reasonable, you move on to the second consultant and negotiate with them.
But once that's scored and that's, you've got your preferred contractor or consultant, you look at their bids but not the other two?
Correct. If you negotiate a deal with the first one,
So you wouldn't know if it's,
the other ones are sent back unopened.
And that's my concern. When you have, in a case, and it just happens in this one, you've got two proposals that were within less than 2 points apart. And to me, that's where you'd want to look at both, see what the price is. If there's a large difference, then, well, something's wrong. And that's the thing that's maddening about this whole thing and how this all came about is really a simple question was asked as to why there's such a difference and what justifies it, but we couldn't ever really get an answer other than assumptions, which really disturbed me, that we just didn't get any answers to why there's such a price difference, and that's the thing that got me more than anything in this whole process, and this could have been completely avoided. But you know, now we're in a situation, again, you get close to 2 points, and in 2, 3 points or whatever, in my mind, they're equally qualified. but we're not gonna look at the price of the other, we're just gonna automatically go, so we don't know where we should be. And just so happens this one was so far off.
Well, a scoring system, it
Maybe it
doesn't
doesn't.
matter how many points apart they are. The preferred consultant has been selected by the committee. It doesn't matter if it's
I
one
think there's
point
something
or
that can
100
be
points.
put in there, if it's within a couple points, I mean, they're equal, in my mind, they're equally qualified. And I've talked to other agencies that have felt the same way, and that's why I think we're moving away from the transparency thing, but that's my opinion, I guess. So, I just think this could have been easily avoided a month ago with good answers to questions that we had, but.
Well, and we did ask that the cost proposal be broken down and quantified more. So it'll have a breakdown of hours, and overhead costs and that sort of thing. So them questions can be looked at, I guess.
But we're only gonna see that on the selected.
Yeah, the selected.
Yeah, see, that's the concern I have, is like Counselor Zadi brought up, I mean, 1 or 2 points I can understand, but $275,000 difference. So this one comes back, you know, no difference, there's still a cost difference of that. I mean, what did we solve other than basically hit the process? I mean, I'm just concerned that they were so close. We had, you know, I think it was 1.8 between the two consultants, and a $275,000 price difference. And so those costs might be justified in their proposal, but I don't know. It's hard to justify, you know, over 110% increase without looking at the other bids, or without saying that we don't even factor in cost. I mean, I don't know. I mean, in the private world, we do a lot, like you said. I mean, our clients, for the same reasons that you brought up, we don't want to be, you know, take the lowest proposal. We don't want to take the highest. So oftentimes they take those two and throw them out and select the mid-range for that reason. They don't want change orders and things like that. But I mean, a fair process that gives everybody an opportunity to earn work that's transparent. I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't know.
If I may, Councillor Green, one of the reasons that there is maybe a concern about transparency is that these proposals that are submitted by these firms are proprietary. And actually, if there was a Freedom of Information Act requesting those or actually the responses to the proposals, those really aren't public documents, because they do contain geotechnical data and other things which are protected by statute. And so, one of the things that you don't want to do in this process is make sure that, I'm sure there's not an engineering firm that wants all the other engineering firms to know what their trade secrets are and certain geotechnical data and other data that they consider to be proprietary. So that is one thing that you need to consider in this process.
And public release does not constitute a release of information to the council, though.
Actually, I think that it does. I think that that once the council receives it, normally this is not within your purview. Your jobs as councilors are to vote on things.
Yes, and vote and approve.
And so of course you have to have all the information that you need to vote. Prior to this, the council would not have been involved. It's just not part of the city's process for the council to be involved in these kinds of decisions unless they ask and start to inquire. And then, of course, we're all under our obligation to answer the questions and make sure that you're as informed as you need to be to make the choices that you need to make.
And I guess that's because we are asked to vote on that, select it, and make the decision. So,
well, I think that you might want to consider trusting the committee. And trusting that the city employees have done exactly what they've been charged with doing.
There's more to it than that, though. It's no different than information we receive from you, Rick, that's confidential, whether it's personnel or whatever. I mean, why are we sitting up here? We went through this process 2 meetings ago and, turned it up and had a lot of heat about it and wanted to fix the process so we didn't have to go through this again. Tonight's the first I've heard that the RFP went back out again. It's not a disrespect for the committee or the people involved with the process or the experts on it, but how do we make an educated decision for the people we represented if we don't see anything, if we never get anything,
But
we're getting it from the other
nothing has
firms.
stayed private. once it hit the council, it's hit social media, it's hit news sources.
Yeah, but those proposals didn't go out.
Well,
We didn't
One
release
did.
them.
Actually,
Well, I
think
can't
that
say
they
for
were-
everyone else,
One
but
did because it was approved and in the council packet.
Yeah.
That was
And-
the one that was
and
the
then the
contract.
others made their way around too. And then there were interviews and everything else on social media.
That was after a
and,
meeting, a public
and,
meeting.
and Wild 4 News and everything else. And city staff was questioned, their integrity. The committee was questioned, the mayor's been questioned.
Well, and we've been questioned too, Paul.
And it has turned into a tainted process that we as city staff struggled very hard. How are we gonna put this out again and make it somewhat fair to these consultants? Because the whole process was tainted.
it still is. It's going to
still is.
continue to be.
And with so many questions, that tells me one thing, that the process maybe isn't as good as it needs to be. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the questions. That's the issue that I have too. Now, that it hit council and then went public, no, it was in a public meeting that all this was released, and at that point it was public. Other than that, we're being asked to make big decisions here, spend public money in a time where the economy's bad, we have declining revenue, and we're not being allowed all the information needed to make a decision. That is the heart of my issue right now, and has been and still will be until we get that fixed. To withhold information or say we don't get information to make a decision, I think is ludicrous. I don't
Well, I'm
think
not
that's right.
withholding any information.
Well, we had to
So-
get the other two proposals. They were given to us from the other consultants because we were told we couldn't have them. I think that is the issue.
And these are the same consultants that are now complaining about the new RFP. Like I said, staff is at a loss on how to, since this process has been tainted so bad, how to make this a fair process.
And I think council's at a loss of how to vote on a fair process.
Well, you guys did it to yourselves, so.
Paul, don't go there. Don't do that.
Yeah, because we
That's-
just didn't follow your information.
The saga continues. Yeah, I think we can be better than that, Paul. You know, the concerns I brought up were just making an informed decision. You know, I gave respect to your staff, your committee, everything else. I just wanted to understand so that I was educated to make a decision. I saw a little bit of a flaw in the system. Does it happen on everyone? No. There was an obvious elephant in the room. There still is. That's not going away. Yeah, I was asked in passing if I wanted to sit on that committee, and I kind of felt like it's too little too late. There's a pretty obvious disconnect on this council, and some of us don't talk as much as others, and I didn't think it was good, even though I did vote against that particular proposal, to get involved with that as a sole counselor. The whole purpose of sending that back the last time was to improve the process, and it's been peanuts, silence, over the last month since that meeting took place. So, to hear that there's another RFP going out, and now there's attitudes about the council, and we did it to ourselves, I mean, we're a lot better
Well-
than that. We're a lot more professional than this.
Yeah, well, your concerns were addressed. We revised the RFP.
Well, I appreciate that. I just didn't know about it until tonight.
Yeah. Well, I don't normally send them out to the council. We send them to the consultants.
Well, that was part of the concern the last time, though. We get the recommendation from the committee, which is in the packet, which obviously the JFC had all their information in it. The other firms start complaining, so we get theirs. Well, we don't even know how to compare them because we still don't have the RFP, and we ask for it. We're not allowed to have it. So, it's a rush decision, and it ended up failing for that reason. I
Well, the
think.
council
So-
meeting prior to that, there was another one, to W.H. Smith for the 2020 sanitary sewer. Went through the same process. There were no questions on that.
Sure.
Yeah, it was only 70 some odd thousand or $80,000, whatever it was, I don't remember. But it went through the same process.
Paul,
There was no questions that were brought up on that.
we don't usually have issues with anything unless it's complaint driven. I mean, we represent the public at large, okay?
And
So-
I understand that.
So when we get a complaint, we look into it. When we hear that there's a $250,000 difference in a project, we look into it. When we're denied information, it makes it a lot more difficult for us to make a decision. We have to approve a budget. We have to spend the city's money. If we're gonna spend it wisely, we need to get this information.
And like I said in my email to all of you, the proposal that was recommended by the committee was in line with the costs in the grant for professional services.
And
It
that may
was
be
not
true.
out of line.
And that may be true.
It was budgeted for.
But we get complaints from the public, and we have to answer those questions. Now, short of releasing the proprietary information, really all we can say is what the pricing is. You know, and it was too bad that the GFC's proposal was in the meeting packet last time, but that wasn't our doing. We don't put that agenda together. If that's proprietary information, why did it make it into a public packet?
The city was given permission to put it in. They had the choice to do the full proposal or a summary, is my understanding. The decision was made to do a full proposal, so that wasn't a decision of the city council.
And we voted it down. That's too bad.
Well, like I said, if the process is not satisfactory to this council, then I think we need to have some kind of a committee or whatever you guys want.
I think that's what we said last time.
And develop but we need to do it quickly. We need to get this project moving. We have a grant associated with it that has deadlines associated with it. If we don't, we're gonna lose that money, and we don't wanna do that. So
let's make that decision tonight.
if
Can we
you
have two
guys
council people on
wanna
there?
get together and develop or fine tune the process like was done years ago, we can do that.
If the process is fine, let's have 2 council persons on that committee. Would that work?
What about outsourcing it? Do you see any benefit in that? I mean, this is a unique situation. We've got a mayor who's also the president of a firm who is also your boss. Regardless of how this comes out, I think it's going to be tainted either way. So how do we eliminate that? Eliminate the involvement? Do we outsource a committee where it's someone from the county that has involvement in here, YDOT, Joe Blow off the street, whoever, where it's maybe not as influenced as what we're currently dealing with to get away from this? We don't have to have this same debate every single time we go out for an RFP on a project. Obviously have some government or counselors involved with the process, obviously city staff, but I think that's part of the issue too that we're hearing is, yeah, we can change it all we want, but the committee still works for the mayor. Well, do we really fix anything?
There again, there's the allegations that there's improper things going on. There was no discussion with the mayor, by the committee, by myself, prior to after the committee met.
No one's made an allegation of that,
so-
but it is the appearance. That's the thing, is that the public looking and seeing what they're seeing, that's why the questions arise. And so we need to do what we can to eliminate those concerns. And perception is reality a lot of the times to people. And that's the perception of it right now, and has been. So there's got to be a way to rectify that and avoid this from happening, because it's probably going to happen with other projects moving forward. And I don't want to go through this every single time. I want it done, I want it set, I want to get it done, I want to get it resolved. And so if Councilor West, I think that's maybe something we could strongly consider, a third party, independent.
How does YDOT do it, Paul? I know you told me in our conversations that you've sat on their selection committee and they solicit other people so that
They actually have files or boxes for every consultant that has ever proposed on a state project. So they have, statement of qualifications and qualification information in there. They have evaluations from districts across the state of projects that they've done for YDOT. recommendation letters from other entities. They have it all compiled into a box. So you as a committee, you meet, you have shortlisted the consultant list, because there's thousands of them, and you've selected, 5 or 7 consultants, let's say, and you sit in a room and you go through each one of them boxes and go through all the information and fill out the evaluation form. Those are tabulated, and then the consultants are ranked 1, 2, 3, 4 to 7.
But as far as the people sitting on that selection committee, how do they go about selecting those?
There again, it depends on the project. If it's a city-type project, they'll have somebody from the city. They have asked me to participate in projects that have nothing to do with the city. They just try to find, people that are knowledgeable, I think, about construction and the processes for what they're looking for, and they put them on the committee. Usually there's some district staff and maybe somebody from Cheyenne. And then, like I said, if it's county or city, if it concerns them or that, they may have somebody from the county or the city on it, and that's how they select them. It's just random.
Councillor West, if I may suggest, rather than revamping the whole process and going out and finding third parties, I really do like the suggestion that Halter made, and I think that even the mayor made, by suggesting to some of you that perhaps you serve on the committee. So why not have 1 or 2 councilors serve on the committee? I think, Councillor Zadi, that should at least address some of the concerns you might have about, and the rest of the councilors may have, about transparency in the process.
Well, I think that's one thing that would help, because it's just the lack of information that's really a struggle for me, and not being able to know what's happening, what's going on, why are we being made, why is this recommendation being made, and we can't get an answer as to why a recommendation's being made. It's just so frustrating to have to vote on something like that.
Well, in response to that, all I would say is that I think the score sheets told you why the selection was made.
No,
I mean,
we saw the final score.
What's that?
Saw the final score. I don't see the rubric or anything else that says why or what was. There's much more to it.
Well, I think I told you guys that the decision was qualification based. Price, under our old process was about 10% of that decision, if you want to go percentages. Cost was weighted, so it was about 10% of that decision. The other 90% was qualifications. And that's what it was based on, their scope of work, their actual proposal, what they, the discussion they had on the specific project and what they were going to do. And then cost weighed in there, a small percentage. But I don't think I kept that information from you. I told you that it was qualification based. When it came down to what's in specifically in that price difference, most of the proposals are more of a lump sum type thing, and so I couldn't tell you exactly what was in that price difference. That's the information I couldn't give you, because I had a price for design and a price for construction management, and added together it was this amount. I didn't have it's because they have this many hours of construction management time with one inspector, this many hours with a second inspector. I didn't have that information.
No,
and so it wasn't that I was trying to keep it from you guys, I didn't have it.
But
now we're asking for that.
That would have been a better answer, though,
proposal.
than they're gonna use interns and summer help and people sitting on lunch boxes, and they don't have surveyors, and our one proposal was 98 pages or whatever, the others were 15. Those were non-answers. I mean, it made no sense why those were even given, because it makes no difference in price there. That's the thing that's concerning. you know,
I didn't give you that.
well, those are the answers that I got.
Well, and I've received those same things
yeah.
from two city
And so
employees
that's
and.
what's maddening and frustrating.
Yeah. So those were assumptions, not qualifications.
Yeah. So at this point, I don't know, as far as council, do we want to move forward with this particular one and may have a counselor sit on the selection committee? I don't know if that would mean it's going to rubric or not, but at least being in there and part of the process to observe what's going on. I think
I
that's at the
recommend two
very
counselors.
minimum. that
Most
we
of our
have.
committees are 3. What if we do one from each ward? It's, I mean, some representation from basically the entire city. Gets plenty of the governing body involved with it. Still not a quorum, but it takes a commitment. I mean, those are pretty. Just thought. I would say at least 2, but
I
my
think
recommendation would be
an issue.
3 like our other committees, or 4 for one for each ward.
And I think the only issue possibly there would be scheduling, maybe, and how to coordinate that, but I think the more the better, actually, in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
I would think 2 would be sufficient.
2 people.
2.
Mm-hmm.
Either way.
And then, moving forward, maybe we need to just kind of, as a whole, get together with you and in procurement and do a workshop or something with council so we better understand the process and what's going on, and then we can think and find and there's different ways that maybe we need or feel that need to be addressed to answer the questions that we typically get here. But we do need to do something to move forward.
Yeah, this process was developed with Councilor Sagano at the time when he was on the council, and you know, we massaged it. I guess it didn't change the overall process, the whole, the general process, but it was changed some, and the scoring evaluation sheets and that were modified and weighted differently a little bit, and you know, he had a lot of involvement in YDOT and other entities, and so that's why it was modified to that at that point.
Well, I think that's good. I think it's always a positive to move forward and find ways to improve any process, any procedure, anything. It's not a condemnation of what was done in the past or saying you're wrong or anything else. It's just what can we do to improve upon what we have? And I think that's what we want, is to see if there's any ways that we can improve upon what we have and move forward. So if council is in agreement, then I guess if we could put 2 counselors on that committee and then look towards some kind of a workshop or getting people together to really look through the process, clearly understand how it's done, and then find ways that maybe we can improve. Maybe there isn't a way we can improve it, but we're at least taking those steps and answering the questions we might have.
I have a question. If we go with the cheapest firm, how many change orders can they put into us saying they need more money, they need more money?
Oh, they can request an unlimited amount.
But those
See, that's
RFPs
ridiculous.
were a not to exceed amount. So my understanding is those proposals were all based on the not to exceed what their bid was.
Oh, they
Now, if
couldn't
the
go
scope
over
of the
their bid?
project changes, if the scope of the project changes, or we change, there's some things there that's just nobody saw or foresaw, or the city or anybody, and it's something that needs to be addressed, then you could potentially see a change order, I would assume. But for normal operations and continuate for the project and how it was proposed and what needed to be done, this was not to exceed proposal, and I think that's what all 3 firms proposed in theirs. All right. Moving forward, I guess?
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking, are they gonna keep coming back to us with more problems?
Should we bring the mayor back in?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go get-
Yeah.
So where are we at? We having a workshop? What are we doing?
So we need to look at scheduling something then?
I mean, you're getting these, what, next week? the new RFPs? Next week you're gonna get them, or 2 weeks?
Yeah,
Next
let's do
week?
the 25th. So as far as that process, I don't think it's feasible. But if we can get committee, council members on there, might help a little bit. But then moving forward, a workshop to review the process, and I think this one we're too late on to do anything.
I'm almost afraid to ask, but is there anyone else wishing to address the council on any issue? If not, I'm going to take some time. Counselors, it's easy to see why we are where we are. There's very little trust in a process that's worked, I don't know, how long? 20-some years? And now we're into a situation where the process is followed and we have some complaints, and we've denied a good project. I have half a mind of writing a letter to the state and just requesting that they take the funding back, because we can't handle it. We obviously have proven that. Deadlines are coming up, and I'm almost embarrassed. But I'd like to address a couple of things. I find it necessary to respond to a couple of recent false accusations as we talk about the Bitter Creek, made by a few local irresponsible individuals who've raised their unfounded claims since the council's decision to deny the recent professional engineering service contract for the Bitter Creek. Obviously hanging their hat on finally finding fault with myself and our staff. Staff and I have now been accused of being corrupt by a few who make these accusations for no reason other than their wish to see the city, its staff, and most importantly myself, fail, which will never happen. It's my opinion that the firm recently selected by the committee, of which you are trying to figure out a way through, was pretty much thrown under the bus. Reputation tarnished, ideas now stolen. The selected firm's trade secrets, learned from many years of experience, and the proposal itself are now available to all others to steal this information and incorporate into their own plan. Watch and see. Yet, I do understand the concerns of the cost difference here and hope we can get answers to our questions and get this much needed project moving forward. But I don't appreciate the accusations being made by a few, so I want to clear just a few things up if we could. And I believe you can see why there's no trust. A recent post.
Oh, good.
From Councillor Green's site. From Tom Allen, the husband of the past Director of Public Works. Absolutely. The first thing that should be done is to look into the potential unethical behavior by the mayor and the City Public Works Director on behalf of the mayor's company. Taxpayers can't afford the extra $250,000 to line the mayor's pockets. Okay. Absolutely not correct. Through this process and since the council's decision, we've had the professional license and conduct of our Public Works Engineering Department questioned by a couple of shady locals who don't remember or aren't aware of what occurred during the past administration, which they themselves were tied to. During 2011 to 2018, just so you know what takes place here, contracts were simply given to one of the complaining engineering firms, Western Engineers, which happened to be very close friends and business associates of the Public Works Director at the time in which her family members were employed, without any bidding or any RFP process whatsoever, simply handed over. This occurred quite regularly for smaller contracts around $40,000. But when one contract was given to Western Engineers to the tune of $141,690 with no RFP, no bid, handed over. At that time, the VP of JFC Engineers and Surveyors, Mr. John Edens, did come and visit with the city attorney at that time and the mayor on August 25th, 2016, of which the city attorney had warned the mayor of providing contracts without following the bidding or the RFP process. Now, I don't know if anyone was aware of that. But I have a copy of the letter dated August 25th, 2016, which we asked to have included in correspondence. When we checked the package, that letter never made it to correspondence. So we left a copy with the city attorney's office. I'll forward that to you. Back to the Bitter Creek project. Once I had heard of the firm selected by the committee, and then after Councillor Green provided the other proposals by email, I could easily see why there was a concern of the city council due to the cost difference. I was concerned myself. Being an RFP, we all know, or we should know, that cost is the last consideration when selecting a firm to do the work. Past experience, knowledge, similar projects, and a few good trade secrets are the items that allow one firm to rise above the others. Costs associated with an RFP can be negotiated once a firm is selected based on further details set forth by the client, which is the city, of which we all know. My concern was that the other RFPs had missed something completely or had lowballed their costs, thinking the cost would be the driving decision maker, and also knowing that JFC bid on the project. We see that. The most important thing to remember is that the RFP process is not a bidding process. We're not seeking the cheapest engineering firm to do the job. The committee is tasked with finding the best firm with the best ideas and a not-to-exceed cost, which can then be negotiated once the firm is selected if desired. Unlike a bid, the job does not automatically go to the firm presenting the lowest cost. Immediately, the complainer complained, as expected. I then contacted most of you councilors to give you a heads up of what I knew at that point. At that point, I had no idea of what the costs were involved with. I was not involved in preparing the proposal, that would be our engineering group, nor was I involved in any way whatsoever with the selection process. The complaint was guaranteed to come from Western, whether the cost separation was $1 or less. From past experiences, with this group, we all knew it would come, and it did. I do respect the councilors' concerns about the cost differences. Yet the frustrating part of this is that many of you almost immediately claimed foul and based your decisions on hearsay with no confidence in or support of staff who had spent hours receiving and reviewing the RFPs. Then, of course, Because I happened to be employed by the firm selected, surely there had to be some manipulation of the process. This is what the haters were led to believe, and a few of you added fuel to the fire without any evidence at all. Never once did I lobby on behalf of JFC. I simply compared the RFPs to one another and defended the decision of the selection committee, of which I have confidence in. I have and always will support the decision made by our professional staff, no matter who the contractor may be. Check the records. As Paul mentioned recently, I just voted to support a $70,000 contract for one of our competitors. It's what the decision was made from the committee was. It's happened many times. And also, as with any time, the firm of which I am employed is participating in an RFP or bid or other, I have and will always abstain from the decision making. Some political history. As many of you know, there are a few who rallied aggressively against my re-election 2 years ago. A few even sit on this council. And yet, they lost. Still, they lay in wait to find some way to trash my name and trash the excellent professional city staff we depend on. Keep in mind, I said a few, not all, but a few. If the shoe fits, wear it. These individuals have been haters from the beginning, and they will be haters to the end. I deal with the defamation of my character almost daily by this group. My family doesn't enjoy it, but I kind of find it amusing. The good thing about this is the majority of the community, the ones who elected me, the silent majority, until they have had enough and become the vocal majority, which is nearing, know who these people are and know the shadiness and self-serving type of people they truly are. Narcissists by definition, and they'll do what they can to see the city fail, but I can assure you it's never going to happen. Sadly, it's a shame that these few can't get over the hate instead of endlessly basking in pointless political self-gratification and begin to work together towards the common good. We could do much more for this city without the hate and by working together. But rest assured, I am my own person, and when backed into a corner or accused of false doings, you can bet I'm going to come out fighting. And will defend myself. I will defend our department heads and our staff. Such is the world in which we live today. We see this hate on the national level, but be assured it exists right here in Rock Springs, Wyoming. The good thing here, that it's a very small group of haters. Similar to the national level, they're the vocal minority who hide in the forest, only come out at night to protest, try to destroy the good, and vandalize the reputations of the good majority. In our small community, these individuals are known well by their reputation and past performances. Their self-serving trail is easily followed, and you can almost guarantee where they'll show up next, jumping out to stir the hate and jumping back into the forest to hide. They use others to do their work, and sadly, Councilor Green found himself in this situation during the last election. Even with good intentions that Ryan had, I believe he was labeled by being associated with a group of haters. Since the decision of the Bitter Creek, this is where we are today. Now there's a call for an investigation into the selection process of this engineering firm and of me as mayor, because surely the mayor had to have manipulated this system. As we're discussing, the system's worked for 20, 25 years, but now it's not working and we need to change it. There's no evidence of this, and there never will be. When you've examined all the public records, which have been provided, by the way, read all the emails and dug down as deep as you can, you will find only one thing: that the process was carried out in precisely the way it was designed, fairly, ethically, and with no outside influence. This I am proud of, and this is who I am, and this is how our department heads and staff operate, whether you want to believe it or not. It is and always has been my style of leadership. We obviously don't do this job for personal gain. We do it for the love we have for our city and to improve the lives of our residents. Immediately after the decision, it was the well-known hater from a local radio network, which we all know, starting accusations. No other media outlet covered this issue in such a biased way. A bit of interesting information about this same person. I believe he has a big heart. He was all about helping our community and donating to its cause. During the reconstruction of the Broadway Theater, he donated $250,000 of his services, which only cost the city $287,607.61. Based on the invoices from his business to the city of Rock Springs, of which are in my office for your review. This was for electrical work, no bids, no RFPs, no invite to any other electrical contractor. We passed a resolution 2012-92, signed and agreed to on the 5th day of June 2012. This being said, we now must have $537,607.61 in electrical services at the theater, including the donation. Still no bid process, simply given and paid. This doesn't pass the smell test by any stretch of the imagination. We're searching documents to verify what the donation actually was and what it went towards. This project was very important to the city of Rock Springs, and it's very hard to imagine over $500,000 in wiring for this project when we had a contractor that was hired to the tune of about $1.4 million. To date, we've recovered over 30,000 emails from this time period, which were believed to have been deleted, but now we all know the emails are really never deleted. We continue to sift through this information for clarification of what took place. You can most likely see why this person was campaigning for someone else to be the mayor, because I obviously was not going to be the person that would benefit him. I still believe he means well. We just aren't a part of the same clique, so I've become the enemy. This is a sad situation, as I believe by at least working together, we both could do much good for Rock Springs. As mentioned, I wholeheartedly welcome any form of investigation, as I have nothing to hide whatsoever, nor does the professional staff employed by the city who did their due diligence and did exactly what they're paid to do. Be professional, make ethical decisions based on their knowledge and the information presented to them, and make decisions that are in the best interest of the city of Rock Springs. We're now doing our own investigation and will provide our findings to a reputable source. So far, the investigation shows that the old statement, people in glass houses should not throw stones, is very accurate. Now, why there is no trust? Councilman Green, this is a post just yesterday, I believe, on your Facebook page, and it reads, "It was disappointing, but certainly not surprising to see that the mayor had endorsed my opponent for the race for Ward 3. It shouldn't have been surprising. I was one of the 3 votes that voted for Larry.
I know.
We all have a vote.
I know.
We
What
had
else
talks.
did you endorse?
I'm not letting up. I appreciate that. Regardless of his political games, I don't understand that. We had talked. You had asked me about what you had thought you should, how your statements went on the forum. I thought it went well. I'll continue to focus on doing the best job I can for the people I represent. I respect that. Demanding accountability. I respect that. And calling out corruption. So, I take a little bit of offense of this portion, and I just would like to ask you.
I'll respond to everything you just said at the podium.
Okay. I would just like to ask you where the corruption is. Is there corruption that you know of?
No, I would call out corruption. It doesn't say I would call out the mayor's corruption.
Oh, do you feel there is corruption?
I believe I have some emails that I want to read that question some ethics.
Okay. You want to go ahead and read it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in response, let's be perfectly clear. The mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, you sent an email, and I do not have in front of me, one of you guys might help me to this, to the council who lobbied basically.
Let me
Wait,
just
no, you have
let
your
me
time.
just say something. There's a difference between lobbying and defending.
No,
okay?
you didn't defend it. You lobbied for Larry Hickerson's appointment. I've got that.
Oh, I would like to see that. But nonetheless, I
Send
did
me a copy
support.
of that. It's on my phone. My phone's in my car. But this is from Mayor Tim Como. During our questions about the JFC proposal, this was on Friday, the 17th. It says, to the council, Mr. Kausich, it says, I'm going to stay out of this to the best I can and have spoken to several of you about this as Brant Lyman began his complaining again. Turn the mic on. Things to consider. Brant Lyman, Western, is a disgruntled ex-employee at JFC as you well know. He has always struggled with putting a quality bid together and has a mentality of bid low and ask for change orders later and always question any bid won by JFC. Number two, the lack of capable and licensed staff, which is a requirement, is why they didn't bid certain criteria or underbid it and hope to get by with summer hires and unqualified staff. Again, we heard it from the mayor, we heard it from Mr. Couch, we heard it from JFC at that podium, verbatim. Number three, 3/4 of the cost of this project is the required construction inspections by a certified inspector, licensed EIT or PE, and construction staking, of which they do not have surveyors. I have the utmost confidence in our staff and trust that whoever Paul selected for the committee does their due diligence. This is not their first rodeo. The lowest bidder is most likely an incompetent bidder, as we well know, and which leads to a shitty job. Time delays and change orders. As mentioned, I do not get involved with this, with the selections of any bids. For the record, but I find it interesting that in the past, Western was given projects without even following the bid process whatsoever, of which we met with the mayor and city attorney and voiced our concerns. No one can be guaranteed a project, but everyone should be guaranteed the right to bid. That I agree with. Yet now, when JFC engineering staff puts together a very detailed and capable bid following the process, and our selected city staff are scrutinized. We all bid projects. You win some and you lose some. You research what went wrong and you try to do better next time. This is a critical project of which I myself know JFC is capable of doing on time, on budget, with no change orders. I don't have any idea what the other bids were, but I do know the total cost of the project and know that JFC is about 10% of the cost, which is normal for what we see in the engineering world. My question is why the others are so low. Something was missed or not bid in the scope. The proposals put together by JFC includes Hanson, Allen, Luce, Landmark Design, who were the design team for the original plan documents. With the inclusion of JFC, this is a very qualified team of professionals and very capable of doing a great job with the years of knowledge of the project. Yes, maybe not the lowest bidder, but definitely the most qualified.
So I think that's an excellent email defending the
I think
committee's
that's
decision.
an effort to lobby the council.
Absolutely
This might be
not.
where we differ in opinion.
That's your opinion, but in
And
my,
that's your
in my
opinion.
thoughts, that's definitely defending the staff's decision. Now, had another firm turned in that type of an RFP, I would have said the same thing about that firm. So nonetheless, let's get back, because we're aware of that email. We provided it. And that's what they're hanging their hat on for, corruption. So let's talk about corruption again, because it keeps getting thrown out. And what it does is basically these baseless accusations of corruption degrade people's faith in city government and cast a terrible bad light on all of us, especially the department heads. If the accusations of corruption are true, we all have to be either completely oblivious to it or complicit in it. There's no being in between. So I ask you again, do you feel there's corruption in the city of Rock Springs? Does anyone feel there's corruption in the city of Rock Springs government?
I feel there's an effort here to, by you with these emails, to persuade the council on that proposal. Just my feelings.
No, well,
And I believe with your recent actions, it is crystal clear you don't want me on this council.
that's you have to understand, Councillor Green. I've known the Hickerson family for my entire life. I knew Larry's dad, Larry, his grandpa. I know them more than I know you. I only know you from our past election. Therefore, and don't take offense to it, but therefore I have to support that individual that I trust and that I know. We all have to make a decision here.
Yeah.
We voted as a council. You were appointed, and Larry was not.
And I don't believe you're going to let that go.
And that was my prerogative to
Mayor,
make that vote.
with all due respect.
Whoever comes through in this election, trust me, if their heart's in the right place, including yourself, I can work with anybody.
Mayor, I've heard this in your office. We've had these great conversations. And I leave there thinking that this is great, we can work together. And then this stuff happens.
This is why
it was
this
brought
happens.
it was brought to my attention by another counselor that you were at the airport bashing me for an hour and a half.
Was at the airport. I
Yes.
haven't been to the airport for I can't tell you
It
how
was
long.
right after I got appointed, and they did the rides on the airport when they were charging.
I don't know what you're talking about. But and nonetheless, Ryan, if you were to be successful and you're in it for the right reasons and you're not a part of this continuous little clique that bashes myself and our city staff, absolutely.
I have
think you
never
good
bashed the city staff.
good
Never
inten-
bashed
good
the city
intentions,
staff, Mayor.
I'm all for it. But
I mean,
other than
that's we're trying
I'm
to paint
not.
this into a Ryan against the city or Ryan against him issue, and that's not the case. All I'm asking, Mayor, is a fair shot at this. And you want to tip the scale. I know the UMWA has weighed in, and this is the first that I know of that nobody has has endorsed a city council member, especially a sitting mayor. Did you endorse any other ward? Did you endorse your own ward?
That has
Ward
to do
4.
with what?
You don't even live in my ward. You can't even vote in my ward. Did you endorse Ward 4?
That has nothing to do with it. I'll endorse whoever the heck I want to endorse
Yeah.
based on what I feel about
And I
it.
think the public will read whatever the heck they feel like it.
Exactly.
Yep,
Nonetheless, this is why there's no trust.
absolutely.
And there never will be any. But in the meantime, this is why the city departments and staff are so reluctant to continue to do work, knowing that this council is so in disarray.
Wait a minute. The council in disarray simply by asking questions when we need to have information to make a decision. I don't understand.
I agree with that, Rob, but
I mean,
you have to understand where they sit. And
Well-
they see these posts go out, I see these posts go out, and then I'm labeled, the staff is labeled, and you have to understand, we spend a lot of time together, and I think these are very, very good and capable people. I have a lot of respect for you individuals that serve on the council, but there comes time when there's a lot of backstabbing. It's frustrating.
But is questioning, that's what I guess, I don't think questioning is backstabbing or asking questions or wanting information.
No, I'm not talking about that. Information is good. I'm talking about all the other stuff that goes on behind the scenes that the normal person don't see. Am I correct?
Yeah, the emails, absolutely.
Okay.
Let's
that's
get 'em
what I'm
out.
talking about. What you just went through with Mr. Cowsage and trying to find a way to improve a process is good information. I agree with that. As I stated before, I was just as concerned about the price difference of this project as anyone was. I was very concerned. First off, knowing that I put a lot of work into this project to get the Bitter Creek moving, which by all means does not mean that a place that I'm employed should get the work. We just should all have a fair opportunity to bid on the work. But that being said, a process that has worked forever is now needs to be changed. And I don't disagree, because when I saw the price difference, something had to be amok. So here we are. But your other comments that just come up, and you want to talk about trust, maybe the mayor should turn some energy towards this too. The serious issues that need serious solutions. What is that?
We're facing a $7 million budget shortfall, and it seems like the mayor of Rock Springs is more interested in getting Ryan Green off the council than solving these problems.
First off, we're not facing any $7 million
That came from you in your office.
Yeah, that's where we were, how many months ago? 2, 3? We're balanced. Budget's balanced.
I believe you posted a question on the forum the other day asking, we're heading into 2021 and going to be looking at cutting $7 million. We could pull that up. So, I mean, that's where I got that information.
Oh, well, it's incorrect.
If it's incorrect, then
nonetheless,
that's where I got it.
We have to balance the budget, which we did.
These are the serious issues I want to work with. This is what
Okay.
I have talked to you in your office for hours about, putting everything behind us. And this
Okay.
is a prepared statement that you did. I mean,
well,
why can you not let 2018 go?
Yeah, I would like to say, why can't a few of you let 2018 go? All the work
'Cause
I've
we
done in my
respond.
3 terms as mayor, and the many hours spent doing my best to improve this city, the many miles I've traveled on snow-packed roads to make late evening or early morning meetings to secure millions of dollars in funding for much-needed projects will never be tarnished by a few who seek to spread rumors and defame my name just because I refuse to be manipulated. I don't make a habit of tooting my own horn like some do, but I will say that I'm proud of the work I've done for this city, and I don't remember very many of you, if any of you, by my side traveling, lobbying, or attending the tense critical meetings to secure the many millions of dollars for projects needed to improve Rock Springs. I can't even count on a couple of you to write a letter to our legislators to help lobby on our behalf from your own home. I was elected to do this job, and I'll do this job. I would hope that we could all work together. I'm getting tired of the bickering. I'm getting old. I'm losing my temper.
This is doing wonders for that, Mayor.
Yeah, I was elected to do this job, and I will. Well, you know what, Councilman Zadi, I get tired of it.
Well,
Staff gets tired
the
of it.
simple thing is, this all started by simple questions, one is simple information. Now, you're going into attack mode and really attacking everybody here, and you're accomplishing nothing at this
Well,
point. If you wanna
that may
work
be your
together, then I
opinion, but
suggest
let
you
me
sit
tell you
down
one
and
thing.
let's continue the meeting.
I am proving a point, and what
Not
I'm
proving
proving is a point. Well, you take it that way, and I don't, that's your prerogative.
You're reinforcing my
It's
point.
very apparent where the mix-up is on this council. No one works together. There's a couple are on one side,
Because you don't
and the
want
rest
us
are
to
in the
work
other
together.
side. It's embarrassing at best.
We need to move this meeting on, Mayor. You're not accomplishing anything but
Well, I'm just
tearing
going to
things
tell you,
apart right now.
I'm just going to continue on as the mayor, and I'm going to tell you that the Young and Hart Community Center, Arthur Park, Gateway Boulevard, Aquatic Center, Grant Street Connector, new 9-hole golf course, Broadway Theater. Yes, by the way, I did acquire that land and receive the grant. Transfer Depot remodel, Bunning Park Band Shelter, parking lot improvements, First Security Bank, Bitter Creek Reconstruction Grant. We've done a lot of work. We were successful when we worked together. We're not so successful right now. But I can tell you that was with my vision, and I'm proud of the work that I did. That's just to name a few that I can remember. It's just a bit concerning that we continue to bicker and we don't work together. We don't. We leave this meeting, we see the emails fly, the social media posts.
The
and
endorsements. You're right.
And the endorsement,
Yeah.
which, by the way, was good. And I wish everybody else the best, but that's my decision, Mr. Green. You can say what you want. We all have a decision to make. That was my decision.
Yeah.
I don't know if you expect that I needed to endorse you
Oh,
or
no,
not. Or did you ask?
Certainly not surprising. It was in
Okay.
the first
Good.
line.
Then why are you surprised?
Yeah.
Anyway, as I stated, I can work with just about anyone if we continue to work in our best interest of the city. I simply refuse to work with those whose goals are to constantly find failure in staff and myself, and that's what it seems like. Very much so. I sleep well at night knowing that what I've done is my best, and I'll continue to do my best for this city, and the few haters will always continue to live their miserable lives in hate. It bothers me not, and I actually enjoy watching these fake people continue to build their reputation of hate. If I knew we didn't have big projects and department heads and staff that are good people, I would resign my position. I would be done. I don't enjoy this. I can't see how you would enjoy this. As I stated, I not only welcome an investigation, but I invite the investigation. And I intended to include in our responses those unethical dealings from the past, of which many of you were here. You may not understand or remember, and maybe had no idea, but we can all enjoy this together. As always, I appreciate the support I've been given by a few of you counselors, and I respect your decisions whether we agree or we don't agree. That being said, there are a few of you have pretty much checked out when I came in years ago, and have done very little for this city or your constituents unless it happened to be a self-serving task. We all know who you are, and once again, if the shoe fits, then wear the shoe. Don't take this to heart if you know the shoe doesn't fit. That being said, tonight, I call on this city council to stop the drama and begin to work together for the better of this city and our department heads, employees, and our citizens. No good can come from this type of continued behavior. If anyone is aware of any form of corruption within the city government, bring it forward to the city attorney so it can be addressed. Avoid being manipulated by naysayers with social media. It does no one any good to be drawn into accusatory conversations without factual information and solid evidence. We owe it to this community to act in a professional manner and represent our citizens in a respectable fashion. I believe it's high time we get back on track and act accordingly. We're not always going to agree, but we should be able to walk away without the accusations and backstabbing that's been taking place over the last few weeks. We're better people than this. Let's rise above this and do the good work we were elected to do. This energy and time could be well spent improving our city other than bickering amongst one another. With the future revenue forecast being bleak, we need to be working together to find ways to stabilize our economy and improve the future best we possibly can other than fighting. We need to begin some trust.
That was well put.
Thank you. We are. Please come to the podium, state your name.
Hi, I'm Darian Meckling. I work for Wild 4 News. I've never spoken at a city council meeting before, so I'm a little nervous. I've only worked for Wild 4 News for about a month now. Before that, I was with the Rocket Miner. And off and on, I have done freelance work for just about every news organization in this area. So I was the one who wrote all of the articles surrounding the JFC proposal. And I would just like to say that not only on behalf of myself, but on behalf of Wild 4, even if there is some sort of an issue between a coworker, a supervisor, the owner of the company I work for, and somebody in city council, police department, fire department, wherever it may be, I will never write or report on anything because of that issue. It's not a witch hunt. It's not about making someone look bad. It's not about who my boss is. It's about integrity. And so, Mayor Como, we haven't had the opportunity to work together before. I've sat in on a lot of these meetings, and I did reach out to some city council members. I didn't see any kind of an issue with bickering or drama or anything like that. I mean, it was kind of a tense meeting. There were a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, frustration. I saw the entire city council working together and asking questions. I mean, it didn't matter what side of that you were on. You guys were all talking. That's what people want to see. It was on my radar because the community had reached out and asked, what's going on with this? Did you know that the mayor is the president of this company? I actually didn't know that. So it wouldn't matter if it was you or anybody else here. If it's their company and they're in the room, I just want to know, is that part of the process? Which is what I asked. Not one person that I talked to said anything negative about you. They all said, well, this is what I would do. This is what previous people have done. I asked, what is the standard? And every single person I talked to on the council, in the audience, previous council members said, there really hasn't been a particular standard set. That's upsetting to the community. That's upsetting to me. That's upsetting to everybody that I know. And that was why that was written about. It wasn't to attack you personally. It wasn't to attack anybody here or make the council look bad at all, actually. It was to give information. What is the RFP process? I have been doing this since 2015, and it has always confused me because it just didn't make sense. So that was already, when that came up the way it did, it wouldn't have mattered if it was the company you work for or another company. It was time to talk about that process and how it can get better. And you're right, there have been times where things have come up and it wasn't questioned, which wasn't right. So when that happened at that meeting, I was actually randomly picked to come here because I had done city council before. I was brand new. I think it was not even my second week when I came to do that. So when I did, I wrote about it. I talked about it. I spent over a week on the project talking to everybody that I could. And there wasn't a whole lot of information for anybody. Everybody said the same thing. It's confusing. We don't know. We're not getting a lot of answers. I called City Hall multiple times, and I got an array of different responses. And if it didn't make sense, it wasn't going in the article because everybody already knew it didn't make any sense. So, to say that certain news organizations, and it's been brought up a couple times, not just by you, have tainted or, exposed people or the process or whatever you want to call it. That's just because we're confused. My job, much like your guys', is complaint driven. I get crazy complaints all the time. I get complaints, why is the fire department at Smith's? Why are they there with the truck? Doesn't that cost us gas money? Well, that's not something I'm going to write about and attack the fire department because I know why. It's for our safety, so they can answer that call faster and get out there. It's not about a witch hunt. It's about having the correct information. So if at any point in time anybody on the council has any questions about what I'm writing, what I've put out there, or would like to respond to anything I've put out there that's said in these meetings, absolutely, feel free. I will make the time. I will run another article. Again, it's not about who my boss is. It's about integrity. And I think a lot of people think the process could be improved, not just in here. The bigger picture is something that I don't think is being looked at as far as some of the stuff you put in your statement. The bigger picture is people don't come to city council meetings and they don't watch the live streams. They look at Facebook. They want to use Facebook so that they know what was said, what was done, was it interesting? We don't write every little thing that happens in here. People don't really care who concessions were approved. They just don't. And a lot of people don't even know what an RFP process is. So when we write about it, we're giving that information to the public. We want them to know. And it's a lot easier to work with you guys than against you. So again, if at any point in time you have questions, concerns, would like to add a follow-up to it, feel free to contact us. But I did call your office before I released that first article. I talked to your secretary. I was disconnected. I tried to call back, and every time I tried to call, I didn't get a response of any sort. So, and I record every phone call I make, every interview. So I'd be more than happy to give that to you. But I did try to reach out to your office.
Well, I appreciate that. And what was your name?
Darian Meckling.
Darian, I've heard nothing but good about you.
Thank you.
And I apologize for the disconnect, but I would really like to sit down. I would have wished to talk to you before, but maybe we could sit down. I would have appreciated the conversation at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I just really wanted to put that out there, and I hope that in the future there is more transparency. That's up to you guys to decide and work that out. But I really do hope that there's more transparency so that everybody has a chance to understand what's going on.
Yes.
And with that, I mean, I'm done unless y'all have any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In your interviews and that you've done, you said you talked to several council members and everything.
Yeah.
Said there wasn't anything negative or really against the mayor said. Was there anything against city staff or anything said?
No.
Negative towards staff?
No, not
there
at all.
wouldn't be, would there?
No,
I
there
didn't
was
think
nothing
so.
even written about city staff, or that was something else that came up. I didn't have time to write down everything I wanted to say. I didn't think I was going to be speaking. Nothing negative was brought up about the city at all, or anyone on the committee, anybody who does any of the committees.
Right. That's what I would imagine the answer would be. So the accusation was there. I had to clarify since you were there and you talked to several council members. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything was said that this process has been here for a long time, that people were confused about it. That was it. Not a single city council member really brought up the city other than this is what we got. And it wasn't a whole lot. So I also had to contact the, I don't want to call them other bidders because I know it's not a bid, but for time's sake, the other bidders, a city council member didn't give me that information. I ran what was given to me by department heads at those companies because that's my job, is to follow up and get the other information. If somebody says there's 1.8 difference, I still have to follow up. That's, part of my job. And after writing that article, a lot of the feedback, yeah, some of it was negative. Some people were throwing around the word corruption. We weren't. But also, there were a lot of people saying thank you. We didn't understand this. This didn't make any sense. I appreciate the city council members who talked, who spoke up. Where can I find the link to watch these streams from now on? So it wasn't just getting these reads. It was great for...
And just to be clear, I'm not referring to articles that you may have written or anybody else have written. These are just comments coming from social media that I'm concerned with. So like I said, I've heard nothing but good about you, and I hope you continue down that path, and I would love to spend some time with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any other questions? Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
So I've got a comment. I hate to keep it going, but this is a definite first for me that I don't think I'll ever forget. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely ridiculous and extremely unprofessional. This isn't what I signed up for. I don't enjoy this at all. It's been the longest 20 months of anything I've ever done. There's been a disconnect from day one as it was, and it just continues to dig deeper into the ground. I don't know what the answer is, but communication is definitely at the top of that list. Across the board, whether that's staff, mayor to council, council back and forth, whatever the case is. But, the idea of a retreat doesn't even seem like it's an option because none of us communicate except for the first and third Tuesdays, at least some of us. And there is nothing. There's nothing there, Paul, we have an issue earlier. We ask, you get mad about it. There isn't the trust there, We're elected officials too, and I respect you as well, Mayor. But we need to put the bullshit aside and start doing what's best for the city. That's what we were elected to do. Hash this other crap out behind closed doors like a bunch of men and women, and let's move on, because this is absolutely ridiculous. And that's my 2 cents.
I couldn't agree more, Councilman.
Could we take a break?
We could take a 5-minute break and come back and finish the business.
We're still on petitions.
We're still on petitions.
We can finish.
Fred, you want to take a break first?
No,
Are you okay?
I'm okay. I'll listen.
Okay.
Fred Von Ahrens, I'd just like to say, as somebody who was sitting home watching this, I tremendously respect the counselors for your courage. I'd also like to recommend, in your thoughts, what I was told when I was 18 years old after college. You never allow bidders to bid for a major project that you would not accept. You do not, as a company, what I was told as a project engineer at 18 years old, you do not allow somebody to bid on a major project and then belittle them or break them down. You respect the people you put in. You do the work, and I heard the comments made. You have boxes, you have history. I would argue that you have respectful people bid, and then you make a selection. You don't berate them after they make a selection and say the higher bidder gets a job. I have never in my career said 90%, if that's what I heard, goes to something other than price. When somebody's on the bidder list and they're the low price, from my company's perspective, you better be able to justify why you don't go to them. You can justify, but then somebody needs to wonder why they're on the bidders list. As a citizen of Rock Springs, I was completely embarrassed by what I heard tonight. The belittling of individual councilor members for what you do and the back and forth. Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I have a lot of respect for you. But when you're backed into a corner and you attack other people in the council, that's very unprofessional. I respect this council. I've not always been on the receiving end of good news for this council, but I've accepted your vote and I've moved on. I have not belittled any one of you. I respect each of you. And I hope Rock Springs can get past this and treat people professionally and do the right thing. Not be bullied. Rob Zotti, I respect you for what you've done and what I've heard and what you've challenged. I know it's not been easy.
Thank you.
Please continue to step up and do the right thing. Rock Springs is better than this. Wyoming is better than this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Fred. Good comments. I'd entertain a motion for a 5-minute. You have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-minute recess.
I will pee my pants if we don't.
I've been drinking water. I don't know if I have to. God, I guess everyone else did have to pee. Oh, no. You got to pee too? I know. I know. Oh,
This is an interesting council meeting.
yeah.
8 more.
I know, 8 more. We're down the line. Why not?
Short sleeves come on with long